Hi, I'm Jerry Stimson, and welcome to the official launch of Burning Issues. It's been an excellent day so far, and I hope it's taken your minds off the American election and COVID. It's our little respite from all the other worries of the world. We can discuss our own worries of the world. Apologies to our colleagues in Malawi because we had some difficulty in getting the questions in the last Q&A, but we hope we found a solution to that. I'd really like to start off by thanking all at KAC who've made this happen, both the report, the website, this launch, and all the media communications that are going on around this launch. I'd also like to thank the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World for funding this project, because without their financial support, there'd be no global state of tobacco harm reduction and no website. There is actually rather a lot in the report, quite heavy reading, but there's a lot to say, and we'll only be focusing on a little bit of that in this final, or what's in it in the final session. Harry and I will be making, I'm making one key takeaway point, and I think Harry's making one key takeaway point. Then Tom Jasinski, who is head of our data services, will be talking about how we came to some of the numbers. And finally, Zagos Kroll will be giving a quick guide, a quick tour around the website. So I'm sort of headlined as saying tobacco harm reduction matters, and I think I ended up with about 100 points. Harm reduction matters for all the reasons that have been said during the day already, but I think just 4 key points for me. It matters because people who use nicotine have a right to protect their health. It matters because an end to smoking can be achieved at virtually no cost to governments, very rare in public health. It matters because if this is played right, it brings an end to the tobacco industry as we know it. It brings a transformation from selling combustibles to non-combustibles. And very importantly, as someone like me who comes from public health, although that's something you shouldn't really admit to much these days, but coming from public health, it matters because it puts people at the centre of change. It offers a positive route to a happier, healthier life. Simple. So, big picture, nicotine is one of the top 3 drugs alongside caffeine and alcohol. Unfortunately, it's the only one of those 3 which is smoked. And we know that smoking is a dirty nicotine delivery system. And despite all the efforts to coerce or persuade smokers to stop, the figures are dismal. First slide, please. WHO estimates there are 1.1 billion smokers. This number has not changed since the year 2000, and it's not predicted to change before at least 2025. That's a public health failure. And 80% of people who smoke are in low and middle income countries. Discouraging people from starting to smoke is important, but campaigns to free kids from tobacco will have no or minimal impact on morbidity and mortality from smoking for 30 years or more. So the priority is to help current smokers find other ways to use nicotine. And that's important because WHO's global project for this, known as Empower, is faltering due to low uptake, the neglect of offering help to stop, and the promotion of ineffective and inappropriate ways to stop. So as we've heard through much of today, the evidence is striking that we do in fact have a solution: safer nicotine products. Since our last report, there is more evidence that safer nicotine products are just that, safer than smoking. Since our last report, there's more evidence that safer nicotine products protect people from smoking. And since our last report, the pace of innovation continues with more and different products available. And since our last report, we've got more indication that when products are available, people will use them and smoking will decline. Just one of the many charts in the report the data we've looked at in terms of smoking cigarette sales in Japan, massive 32% drop in cigarette sales with the rise of heated tobacco products. So THR works. The key is products that are appropriate, acceptable, affordable, and accessible, the 4 A's. So what does this hold for the 1.1 billion smokers? Are we making any progress? Slide 2, please. For the first time in Burning Issues, we've tried to estimate the number of vapors. Taking all the national surveys, extrapolating where data are missing, we estimate that there are 68 million vapors globally. In a moment, Tom Jasinski will explain how we got to this figure. The figures on vaping and the figures on HTP use and on smokeless are actually pretty thin for all the public concern, all the public health concern and governmental concern about vaping and safer nicotine products. There are very much a paucity of information in trying to come to these estimates. But overall, we think there are around 98 million, let's call it 100 million users of safer nicotine products. So you might say, well, that's probably a success. There's a lot of people who are now using safer nicotine products. Next slide. We started from a low base. 10 years really in the development and rollout of electronic cigarettes and heated tobacco products, longer with snus, but then snus is also banned in many countries and particularly in the European Union. So you might say in 10 years that's pretty good to have 100 million users of SNP, but when you set that against the 1.1 billion smokers, it's a failure. It's an unrealized public health potential. It's really not good enough. So next slide, please. My simple takeaway from the report is to say something which many of you listening know. We know that tobacco harm reduction works. And in the language of my sort of public health background, the urgent need is to scale up. If this were a vaccine, if we were tackling this like COVID, we'd be pushing to roll out these products to reach people who want to use, to find other ways of using nicotine. In particular, we need to roll out this to the 80% of the smokers, world smokers who are in low and middle income countries, who've been neglected by the manufacturers of safer nicotine products. These products are still products for rich countries, so we urgently need to find ways of rolling out safer nicotine products globally. Need to roll it out to low and middle income countries who've been misled by WHO and lied to by philanthropic organizations. There are good reasons why the numbers of users of SNP products are small. Our 2018 report was actually pretty optimistic. An awful lot has happened in the last year that is very, very negative. The mood music has changed. There are strident anti-tobacco harm reduction rhetorics around the world. More money is being thrown at THR. So my message is not doing well enough, must do much better. And it's now over to Harry Shapiro, who is the author and executive editor of the report, to explain a little bit more about what are the obstacles in the way of rolling out tobacco harm reduction. So over to you, Harry.